of the future. Is it a flying car? Is it driverless? Is it faster, safer, greener? Well, the car of the future is already being built right here, right now in Israel.
The whole notion of smart cities is based on the fact that cars can drive autonomously. The car is an ideal platform for AI. The car is evolving from metal and engines and transmission to software, artificial intelligence, computer vision, machine learning.
Why Israel? Because we can find the best minds, the best educated people and the great startups here in the market. So we as a corporate, we can actually learn from the startups, learn from the technologies and to work together.
Innovators in Israel are already perfecting autonomous capabilities with radar, computer vision and other technologies that interpret the car's environment.
Our major technological breakthrough is by providing a very high-performance, solid-state, MEMS-based LiDAR.
And starting from 2021, BMW has selected our LiDAR for use in its mass production vehicles.
They're also developing cyber technologies to protect autonomous cars.
What makes Israel unique in this regard is that we have a lot of alumni from high-end technological units in the Israeli military that bring with them a lot of relevant experience when it goes to cybersecurity.
Experts predict that by the year 2030, 1 out of 4 cars worldwide will be driverless. So when your car takes you on a sweet new road trip, don't forget the people who helped build it.
Before cars. The earliest from the carriage, from Old Northern French meaning to carry in a vehicle, was the chariot in Mesopotamia around 3000 before Christ. It was nothing more than a two-wheeled basin for a couple of people and pulled by 1 or 2 horses. It was light and quickly, and the favored vehicles to warfare with Egyptians. Over the centuries, a big linear array of carriages entered mainstream. They were developed not only for the partial needs of getting around and delivering goods, but for style, elegancy, and changing fashions. The origin. It's hard to create a single person with the inventing the automobile. Not only did an estimate of 100,000 patents lead to cars as we know them, but people also disagree on what qualifies as the first true automobile. For historians who think that early steam-powered road vehicles fit the bill, the answer is Nicolas Joseph Cugnot, a French military engineer who in 1769 built a steam-powered tricycle for hauling artillery. The vehicle's single front wheel performed both steering and driving functions, and it could travel at 2.25 miles per hour with 4 passengers aboard for 15 minutes. At the point, Cugnot fired a vapor, as it was known, will lead to rest in order to recuperate enough power to move again.
Are the archetype of a primitive caveman-level technology, but in fact they are so ingenious that it took 3,500 before Christ for someone to invent them. By that time it was the Bronze Age. Humans were already casting metal alloys, constructing canals and sailboats, even designing complex musical instruments such as harps. The tricky thing about the wheel is not convincing of a cylinder rolling on its edge. It's figuring out how to connect a stable, stationary platform to that cylinder. To make that a fixed axle with a revolving wheels, Anthony explained the ends of the axle had to be nearly perfectly smooth and round, as did the holes in the center of the wheels. Otherwise, there will be too much friction between these components for the wheels to turn.
And electricity power. The earliest vehicles, 1700s to 1890s. You may be surprised to find electric vehicles aren't a new concept. The first automobiles actually ran on steam and electricity. You may also be surprised to learn the first vehicles were developed in the late 1700s. Those first vehicles were powered by steam. It was an energy source that had been used for many years to power trains. However, it wasn't until the 1870s that steam power became more practical for small vehicles. Despite improvements, there were still a lot of shortcomings. Steam-powered vehicles took a very long time to start up and the range was limited. In the early 1800s, inventors around the world began building electric-powered buggies. A few decades later, inventors in England and France created vehicles that were much more closer to modern-day EVs. In 1890, William Morrison built the first electric car in the US. That car could go 14 miles per hour.
While some of the very first cars were powered by steam engines dating back to the 1700s, it was Carl Benz in 1885 who invented the first gas-powered car, which he later received a patent for in 1886. Benz's first car had three wheels, looked much like an elongated tricycle. At the time, electric vehicles were on their way to being the norm. But there was one problem with early electric vehicles. People were interested in owning them, but the elaborate machines were too expensive for the middle class. It wasn't until Henry Ford's 1908 Model T that automobiles started to resemble what we're familiar with today. Thanks to Ford's invention of the assembly line, the gas-powered Model T could be mass-produced and became affordable for the general population.
Vehicle spheres take center stage, 1930s present. Along with the mass production came new features. Some of the first being speedometers, seatbelts, windshields, and rear view mirrors. Believe it or not, the first turn signals weren't added to a car until Buick did it in 1939. That's even after the first car with electric windows and air conditioning. Then, cars started to get fancy, with power steering, 1951, cruise control, 1957, 3-point seatbelts, 1959, and heated seats, 1966. In 1973, Oldsmobile installed the first passenger airbag into their Tornado model. Over 20 years later, in 1998, the federal government required all passenger vehicles to come standard with dual frontal airbags. In the late 80s and early 90s, keyless entry systems, electric doors and windows, sunroofs, and CD players began to be standard features. This is about the time when the technology became a big selling point.
Modern vehicle features. This brings us to modern-day cars with Bluetooth, hard drives, advanced safety systems, GPS, Wi-Fi, and even the ability to parallel park themselves. It seems crazy, but it is true. In this age, cars come standard with features that were once a luxury, or didn't even exist at all. And driverless cars that once seemed like something out of science fiction film are close to being a reality. It is amazing to think how far cars have come and where the technology will go down the road.